this at some point to change tapes. Okay. I have been asked to read the following. The following interview of Hal Johnson was conducted on December 2nd, 1986 in Waikiki, Honolulu, at about 8:30 in the evening. Mr. Johnson lives in Oak Harbor, Washington. The interviewer was Bart Fredo, and also in the room with us is Dan Martinez of the National Park Service. Mr. Johnson, let me start off by asking you to tell us your name and where you were from back in 1941.
Harold Johnson, and I joined the Navy in Bellingham, Washington.
What was your rank and your job in the Navy?
I was Seaman Second Class. I was in number 4 gun turret.
Aboard?
Aboard the Oklahoma, which is the after gun turret on the ship.
When did you come to Hawaii?
April 1941.
The ship already here?
It was here, and then I went back to San Francisco and came back out here.
Let's turn our attention to the morning of the attack, before the attack. What were you doing?
Well, I was getting ready to go ashore. I was shining my shoes and getting ready to go.
Liberty?
Liberty started at 8 o'clock, and I was getting ready to go ashore.
When did you first realize something out of the ordinary was happening?
When they passed the word that general quarters.
Alarm went off.
No, the OD,
Officer of the deck.
officer of the deck, went to the loudspeaker and yelled over the speaker that there was an attack, and he said, "This is no shit, there's a real attack." And,
what did you do?
well, I took off and run from my battle station.
Which was where?
It was in number 4 handling room. That was 4 decks below the number 4 turret.
Okay. So did you make it there?
Yeah, I got down there. But on the way down, there's 2 torpedoes hit before I got down there.
And tell us what happened.
On the way down, I was running through the passageway there towards the turret where I went down, and torpedo hit and splashed water up. It came down through a hatch above me where I was running under it, and the water got on my arm, and I thought it was mustard gas or something, and I started rubbing my arm until it got so sore that I really thought I had something there, and but I finally got down to the handling room, and about the time I got down there, the ship took another torpedo. It was listing a little bit more, and then pretty soon the lights went out.
When these torpedoes hit, what was it like?
Just like the whole ship was just jumping out of the water. It just, they really hit hard.
Knock you off your feet?
Well, it didn't knock me off my feet, but it'd bump you up against the bulkhead, or, you know, you could tell that whatever it was pretty powerful.
So after the second torpedo hit, what happened then?
Well, I was still on my way down, and about the time I got there is when the third one hit. And that's about the time it was getting pretty close to 40, 45 degree list. And there was a can of oil that spilt down. I remember that. And they were forming when the lights went out, there was one of the petty officers up by the ladder. And he formed a line that the ones that could get a hold of him formed a line up to the ladder when they passed the word to abandon ship. Well, I happened to be right there by the ladder when it started up.
What happened next?
I went up the ladder, and well, like I say, the lights were out, and I went up through there without a scratch. And usually during the drills, when the lights were on, I'd bump my head or something, you know, going up there. But that day I didn't. I went right through everything, just like I knew where I was going.
And you managed to get topside?
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Well, when I got up, the turret hatch is out over the deck, and you crawl down, and then you're on the main deck. And the water was just about ready to go down the hatch when I got out.
What kind of a list was
About
there
45 degrees.
at this point?
Mhm.
Then what happened?
Well, I laid down on the deck and I was hanging onto a hatch cover, and another guy was next to me, and my division officer was just up above me. And we were just looking things over and trying to figure out what to do. And he walked the deck around, or as the ship rolled over, he walked up around and wound up on the bottom of the ship.
When you first came up on deck, what did you see and hear? Could you see the attacking planes?
Oh yeah, yeah. They were strafing and still bombing. In fact, the West Virginia, which was just astern of us, it took a bomb in the bow.
You saw that?
Yeah.
Describe what you saw.
You know, it was just a big explosion, and flames just shot up in the air. And about that time, I decided to go into the water and swim for it. And
So you deliberately jumped in the water.
yeah, yeah.
The ship, your ship, the Oklahoma, had not capsized yet.
Not all the way, no. It was getting ready to, so I left. And there was a seaplane turned upside down in the water, and I hung on to that until I was rescued.
When you jumped in the water and looked back, did you see the Oklahoma capsize?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she just kept going over slow.
And just rolled over so the bottom was up?
Yeah.
Did you see people jumping off?
They were running all over the bottom of it. They just walked the ship around as she rolled over. And the people were just running along the bottom of it. Some of them went over to the Maryland, which was tied up next to us. Some of them were jump overboard.
What happened to you next?
Well, when the boat picked us up, they took us over to the subbase. And we stayed there and showered and got cleaned up, and they gave us clothes and everything. And then the next day we were assigned to different ships.
But back to the day of the attack, you didn't do anything after you were picked up by the boat and taken to the subbase? So just...
No, like I say, we just got cleaned up and hoping that there wasn't going to be any more.
When you first saw the devastation along Battleship Row, what was your reaction? How did you feel?
Oh, it was unbelievable. You couldn't hardly believe that all of these ships could get sunk like that, you know, that quick. And it's,
Did you see the Arizona go up and
I seen it when it blew, and the smoke. In fact, the water caught on fire. The oil caught a fire shortly after that.
Did you see it go down, the Arizona?
Yeah, well, it was scuttling slowly anyway, because it had already been hit, and it was going down slow. But when that hit, she just, you know, just practically disappeared. It was the only thing sticking up was the superstructure.
Could you see anybody getting off that ship?
No, I didn't. It was too far away to see, you know, people jumping off or anything. But I seen them jumping off the other ships, you know, close by us.
Talking about seeing people, these planes were pretty low. Could you see the pilots?
No, I can't say that I seen the pilots, but I could sure see the old ball on the wings, I can tell you that.
And you could see the ordnance that they were dropping, the bombs and the...
Yeah, you could tell the torpedo planes, they were coming in level and dropping them, and the bombers were dive bombers. They were coming straight down. And
So you went to the subbase, and was the attack over by then, by the time you got to the subbase?
no, I don't think it lasted about over an hour, actually. But the main part of the attack was over as far as Battleship Row is concerned.
Well then, while you were being transported to the subbase, and while you were at the subbase, what could you see?
Well, scraping in the water. They were scraping the people in the water.
Did they attempt to strafe your boat?
They were scraping when I was in the water. There was a motor launch that was just a little ways from me that was, people were hanging it was turned upside down, and people were hanging on it, and they scraped that. And,
You see people hit?
oh yeah, yeah, there were several of them got hit on that.
Were you able to help anybody?
When the motor launch come by, I helped haul other people in.
Were you wounded at that point?
No, I never got wounded.
you make it through without a scratch?
I did the whole war. I never got scratched.
How long did you remain in Hawaii
Where?
after the attack?
Well, I went aboard the Warden, USS Warden destroyer, and we were in and out of here for a year after that. And then it got sunk, and then I went back to the States and
Were you aboard the ship when it got
Yeah.
sunk? Where was that?
up in the Amchitka, went up to Alaska in the Aleutian chain.
So you had 2 ships blown out from under you.
Right.
Looking back on the attack, is there any anything that you remember more than anything else? Something that's more vivid than anything else?
Well, things that were said down in the turret, I remember. You know.
Can you tell us what those things were?
Well, we used to talk about, we had these where they showed flashcards of ships and things, you know, and the Japanese Navy at the time, I think, was the world's largest, you know. And I remember arguing with this one kid at a drill or something about, you know, if we ever had to go to war, we'd have our hands full. And he said, "Oh, bull," he said, "they haven't got nothing." So I remember telling him when we was down in the handling room and lights were out, I said, "What do you think about this Japanese Navy now?" You know. And so I remember things like that. Kind of.
Did martial law influence your life in any way, affect your life while you were here?
Just that we couldn't get over Nile Liberty. You know, we had, of course, there for a while nobody got liberty, but then when we did, we still had to go under the rules of getting back before dark. And if there was a few married people that still had their families here, and if you knew one of them and could get permission from the captain to go ashore and stay at their house, you could do that. And a lot of us would cook up a deal like that, and then instead of going to their house, we'd stay at the YMCA and go out on the town a little bit at night. And our destroyer I was on one night trying to get a hold of everybody, and of course we were out in the town, and next morning I seen it going out the harbor, so that didn't work out. That's
You missed your ship.
yeah, I missed it.
What he would have done if there wouldn't have been the attack. Where would he have gone?
Oh, you're interested in that? Okay.
If he
Where are you at?
Okay, I'll ask you. Let's go back to the Oklahoma, and you're trapped below deck. The lights are out. How many people are down there with you?
I think there was about 25 in the handling room. We had magazine areas down there too, so there was some of them that were in the magazine areas, and then in the handling deck itself, there was about 20, 25 of us.
You said earlier that you managed to get above deck. How many men managed to get there with you?
Well, when I got out, there was 3 of us that came up through the passage, or the ladder the way I did, and I know there was 2 in the turret that got out. They were still in the turret when we come out of there, but when I got out, there was 3 of us on the deck, and I don't think any more got out from the handling room.
Did you use what? Battle lanterns?
Yeah, we had battle lanterns.
Describe what those are.
Well, they're a light about that square with dry cell batteries, and most of the batteries are pretty old, so they weren't very bright. You know, they could see a little bit, but not very good.
How long did it take you to get from below deck to the top side?
Not very long. That was
A matter of what? Minutes?
oh,
How many?
seconds. I went up as fast as I could go.
And how long were you on deck before you decided to jump overboard?
Oh, probably a minute or so. It's you could see there was nothing you could do. There's no chance if I went up the other way, I'd had to walk the ship around, and I figured it was just as safe to swim for it as far as getting scraped or anything.
You knew at that point that the ship was going.
Oh yeah, it was doomed.
What was it like in the water?
Well, the oil was about 3 feet thick. It was like swimming in tar. And you couldn't tell one person from the other. Everybody was black. So.
Did it want to pull you down?
No, you could stay above it, but it was just real thick and gooey. You couldn't make much headway.
And the other men in the water, about how many men were in the water around you?
They were all around. There were several.
Within arm's length?
Yeah, they were all over the place. There's about 3 or 4 of us on this airplane that was turned over, and a bunch of them around on this motor launch. And then there's people just swimming and floating in the water.
What was the attitude of the men around you?
Well, some were, real panicky and screaming, and others were doing pretty good. And I don't know. It was after I got in the boat, then I kind of got over the panic and started to help people into the boat. And then I really, when we got up to subbase, that's when I think most everybody broke down. They really got scared then.
You too?
Every time you hear a gun go off or anything after that, boy, you was jumping, and it was pretty nerve-wracking.
What was your reaction when you saw the devastation along Battleship Row? How did you react?
Well, like I say, it was just hard to believe. You just couldn't think that it could be done like that.
Briefly, what happened to you in the rest of the war?
Well, I went through the whole war. I went on board the destroyer, and then I went from there. I went to the East Coast and was on the East Coast for a year. I was in Panama for a few months, and then an LST came through Panama, and I got on that and came back out the Pacific and went through the invasions of the islands, Philippines and the Okinawa.
When did you get out?
I got out in 46. I was regular Navy, and I had to stay in my little hitch.
When someone mentions or you hear the words Pearl Harbor or December 7th, what picture comes to mind?
Just about what happened out here.
Is there one picture that's more vivid than any of the others? Picture that comes to immediately to mind?
Probably the Arizona, because anytime you see a picture of it, that's what you see. And of course, I remember when it got hit and everything, and that stands out in my mind. And also that when West Virginia, when it took that bomb on the bow.
Which you saw.
Because I was so close to that. Yeah.
A lot of people who went through the war, and especially those who went through Pearl Harbor, survived, have a certain amount of animosity to the Japanese or to Japan. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't hold anything against Japanese people. I was stationed over there during the Korean War, and I got to know quite a few of them, got to be friends with them. And most of them were real nice people.
So you never really held it against any?
No. In fact, I met a guy over there that worked in the shipyard that was a admiral in the Japanese Navy, and he had a crew of yard workers that come aboard our ship and worked. And we got to be pretty good friends, and we went over to his house and visited. And so...
So if you were to run into some Japanese survivors of the Pearl Harbor attack or World War II at one of these reunions here, you'd be interested in talking to them, or?
Yeah, well, you hear both sides for one thing, and of course I don't like what they did to us, but in the same time, you as time goes by, well, these things kind of disappear. And
but there must have been, back then, there must have been a lot of anger.
There was.
That you held for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah, during the war it was
A lot of people don't like talking about the attack. Survivors of Pearl Harbor don't like talking about it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't mind talking about it, but for a while there, I didn't talk much about it.
Why?
I don't know. It just, in fact, my kids were 6, 7 years old before they ever knew I was in Pearl Harbor. And it don't bother me now. Talk about it.
You played a role in a very major event in history. How has it affected your life, if at all?
Well, probably made me a little older than I should be, but I don't know that it really affected it in any certain way or anything. I think I probably would have went through life just what I'm doing now, except I don't know. It might have affected the earlier part of my life a little bit, but not the rest of it.
In the intervening years since the attack, do you think about it much?
Yeah, every year.
In other words, it's the anniversary that reminds you of it
Yeah,
more than anything.
yeah.
But other than that, you don't have bad dreams
No,
about it.
No, not anymore. No.
But you used to.
Well, yeah, I have. I've had dreams about it.
Would the dreams
But,
follow reality?
Yeah. And well, I had a dream about it before I ever was over here. I was thinking about joining the Navy, and I was on a ship that sunk and rolled over. I just dreamt that, and it just come true. But then I've dreamt about it after that too.
Same incident, but not the Oklahoma, but this other.
No, the things that happened out here, and of course different things that happened in the war too. But I don't have any dreams like that much anymore.
Do you have anything, a memento or something that you had aboard the Oklahoma?
Yeah. About a year after the attack, my mother got a wooden box. It was about that long, it was square. It was made out of 1-inch material, all nailed together. And then she opened it up, there was a jackknife and a watch and a wallet in it that they got out of my locker. And they rolled it over.
And you still have it?
Yeah, I still got it, yeah. Yeah. But to send, I can imagine what it cost the government to send that box that probably weighed about 6 pounds with 3 little items in it. Yeah.
Stop. Okay. Lots of people were killed in the attack. You ever think about why them and not me?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I was just lucky, I guess. I just, it could have been me real easily. If I hadn't been a few seconds ahead of them other fellas, well, I'd have been down there too. Of course, now most of them got out.
These are the fellas
about
below
40.
deck on the Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They were cut out.
Yeah. Well, we lost about 300 people on the Oklahoma altogether.
Any close friends aboard the ship that you lost?
Yeah, several, yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Well, you feel bad about it, but there's just nothing that can be done, and you're just thankful that it wasn't you. And you think about these guys all the time. And
Can you still remember some of the names?
well, names have kind of slipped out of my mind, but I remember the faces, and the rates. One of them was a bugler. They used to have buglers them days, and I remember him. He was this second class, and he was, we were pretty buddies, and he never made it. And then there was a fellow from England. He used to be in the British Navy, and he come over and he joined the American Navy, and he was Airedale on there, aviation. And he didn't make it. He was one of the older guys. He's one of them guys that, sit down and tell you sea stories all day, and I know he didn't make it. So
Have you come out to Hawaii for the anniversaries before?
this is my third time. I don't know how many they've had. I think they've had about 5, 4 or 5 of them, or maybe more.
Has your attitude changed over the course of those 3 times?
In which way?
I'm not sure I know what I'm asking you. Is your thinking about what you're going through changed? Are you looking at things differently now than you did, say, the last time you were here?
Oh, no, I'm just getting a little more mellow each time. That's about it.
Aren't we all?